discuss it after. Cool. So from here, what are some of the most difficult parts? What do you mean by the slash? It's having the division?
So when the person types in the endpoint, no, just like you can't collect.
Oh.
The person types in like, oh yeah, this is an action.
Like doing so basically the division with a slash.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other points that we should address? So let's do this. Let's do this one real quick. So in here we are asked to build a server, to build an API that will work basically as a calculator. So I'm going to create a file in here. Also, I'm going to be uploading these lecture notes and these like snippets of code that I take. I'm going to create a GitHub repo so that you have the time, like you have the access to it after, and I don't have to Slack files and stuff like that. I'm going to do that this afternoon. So I'm going to create a file here called like math API.js. Open this with code. And I don't need to install Express because, in this folder, last class, we had installed Express already. If I was in a folder that didn't have Express, I'll need to install it. So let me change this. And let me disable this. No, not Express thing. Math API, you import Express. You create an instance of Express by calling Express as a function. Then you set the server to listen. I'm going to hardcode the port here to 3000. Server listening on http://localhost. Cool. Am I missing anything here besides the routes? So let's do app.get /sum request response. Remember this is a callback. And I'm going to do, since we know that we need to send back JSON, I'm going to create a object here that is going to have like num1, num2, and we're going to see where this comes from, result. And then I'm going to do res.json or .send result. So if I run this server, let's open this in here. Let's node, or let's do nodemon. Math API is running. What will happen once I go to a browser and paste this URL and hit enter? What do you think will happen? And I do /sum. Well, it is currently breaking because num1 is not defined. So what we're missing here is the fact that in the README we specified that you should have an endpoint like this, or I think this is actually add. And then this is something that we're going to be talking about more today, passing these two numbers, right? So let's do 2 and 4. And currently the way that I have coded my server is it's giving me cannot get sum/2 and /4. Why is that? Why is it that it cannot get that? Yes, Joanne? It doesn't know what I want to do with the numbers. So how do I define numbers, or how can I use these two numbers from here in my server? I mean, /num2. So this thing that we're saying here, we're going to talk about more today. These are called URL parameters. These are sort of placeholders for anything that comes after the add. And this section in the URL, basically the section after sum, is supposed to be variable, right? Like we could put in any number here, right? So now we still get that. Oh, because I changed this to sum. I'm going to do add, and now I get num1 is not defined, right? So we place our URL parameters, that's great, but how do I access them? Like how can I see what came here as num1 and see what came here as num2? Let's see, somebody else. How can I access num1 and num2, whatever num the user specified here? Bonil? Let's inspect what rec.params is. Rec.params. This param stands for parameters. So I'm gonna do this in here. So I'm console logging here rec.params. Now I'm gonna make another request with curl. Curl HTTP localhost 3000 /add /3 and 4. Let's see what this is. Oops. We get num1 is not defined. Okay, we still get num1 is not defined, but we also have this console log here. This is our console log for inspecting what rec.params is. And it turns out that rec.params have the numbers that we're interested in, right? It has this /3 and it has the 4. So the key here to remember is that whenever you specify URL parameters like this information will be stored into something called rec.params. In there, you see this num1 that is specified here? That is the name of this key that I get in my rec.params object. Rec.params is an object that gets populated by Express once it sees that something came in here. So so now that we know where our numbers are coming from, then we can just say num1 is going to be equal to rec.params dot num1, right? We know that rec.params is an object that has a num1 property. Let's do the same here, rec.params num2. And now the result. So for the result, or let's do result 100. We're not doing the math actually yet here. So let's see this working. I'm going to repeat the request with curl. And now we see our params. Note that what happens when I change this to like 3,000 or 30,000 and maybe 365. Those two numbers are captured as URL parameters and are available to us as in the object rec.params. Cool. So that's what we're seeing, and then we see that the result is this JSON string, where num1 is 30,000, num2 is 365, the ones that I sent, and the result is 100. But we want the result to actually be the math of adding these two numbers. So for doing that, since I know that, note here that I use these two here, so I could just say something like, well, for doing math, let's just review this real quick. What if I do params num1 plus rec.params num2? Let's see what we get once we do this. Repeat that. Oh, and we got, we didn't get a, did we get a result? Yes, so we got a result here. We got 30,365,000. Why is that? Somebody else. Jonathan, a little bit louder.
It's a string.
What's a string?
Strings are real characters.
Yes, but in here, what parts are strings?
That's the parameters.
Yes, the parameters num1 is a string. They come in as strings. You can see them here with quotes, right? And what happens when you do plus on strings? Concatenating, that's the key word. So in here, what we need to do is convert these to numbers, right? For doing proper math. There's a few ways to do that. Before we do that, what I want to do is I want to take in, I see that I'm doing rec.params num1 and rec.params. So I'm repeating myself a lot of the time here saying rec.params. So when you find something like that, you create the variables outside. Rec.params num1 for a shorter variable name. This is equal. And then num2. And then here, this is just say num1, num2. So we said that we need to convert this to numbers for doing proper math. So you know what, let's convert. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to convert here. I'm going to say parse int. Convert them here directly as we get the variables, and then in here we can just say num1 plus num2. Let's look at this again. The server restarted. Now I'm going to repeat the request with curl. Now we have 30,365, which is the right math. Let's try with that simpler. 5 and 3 should be 8, and we got our result. If we try this in the browser, we're going to get the same. Here I have 104. We have the result is 104. Yes, Malik? Say that again. So this JSON format.
I didn't see it was of that JSON.
Oh, here. Yeah. Yeah, like this is, and this. Remember that this is the browser. You know, we install an extension to prettify this JSON. But when you do that in curl, curl doesn't do shit for you. It just gives you the raw data. Questions or comments regarding this? Basically, for the other operations will be the same thing. What's not a bug, but limitation that this current implementation of sum has? There's a limitation that we have here. There is some sums, some addition that is not going to work. What do you think that one is? Negative numbers. Let's try negative numbers first. Minus 100 plus 4. What is that going to be equal to? Negative 96 maybe? Cool. Decimals, that's correct. Decimals are not going to work. If I try like 5.5 plus 4, we get 9. What should have we gotten instead? I mean? Yes, but in here we should have gotten 9.5, right? So since we parse int here, the name itself says it's for integers. It's not going to take in anything that's not an integer. So we could change this to be parse float, which are all the other numbers that are decimal point or floating point. And this will take care of that problem. Parse float allows for parsing and converting a string that represents a float into an actual number. Let's try that. 9.5. Yes, Joanne? Oh, yeah, we could have also, so yes, we could also do this in this fashion. Let me copy this, comment this. And we could have also parse these numbers with number. Let's try this. Yes. So remember that there's two ways basically of converting a string to a number. Two main ways. One is with parsing or parse float, depending on your needs. You need to handle decimal numbers. Parse float is your best. You could also do that with the number constructor function. And this takes care of both. Cool. Other questions or comments in this one? What would happen if I pass in here something like ABC? ABC plus 4. No. But you're correct. Yes, it's not a number. If we could see it, like if we could console log here, let's do console log result. Now console log result, I'm going to do it with curl now here so that we can see the console in here. I'm going to try ABC plus 3. We get in here, you see the console log of the result? It says not a number because it tried to convert ABC and that is of course not a number. It converted number 3 and the result of the adding not a number plus 3 is going to be not a number. Right? This is an interesting sort of case where we see that the response here, the response that we got is num1 no, num3, num2 3, result no. Why do you think is that? Why do you think we didn't get NaN here? Yes. Because the string of letters is not a number. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
You're trying to parse A into a number. A is not a number.
Then we get NaN, but like this is, you see, this is the console log of the result, right? And as we see here, when we're just sending back the result, but in here now we get no instead of NaN. So it's not like a big deal, but this is the server. So NaN, not a number, is a JavaScript concept, right? NaN only exists in JavaScript. You could think of, like as we send this response to the server, this data is like living JavaScript world, And since outside of JavaScript world, like there is no NaN, that just gets converted to null. So like the absence of value or the explicit signaling that it's an invalid value. Cool. Other questions, concerns? Do you have something similar to this in your lab? It doesn't have to be exactly, but if it works, that's the point. Cool. So, and it will be basically the same for the rest of the other endpoints. One for subtraction, division, and multiplication. Yes, Dennis?
Is there a way for you to put an if statement in the .get to look for not numbers? So have it look for numbers first, and then if numbers, do the number thing you've done here. Else, anything else just concatenate on.
Yeah, so yes, we can check for something that is not a number. And actually, I think this said, if either of the parameters is not a number, respond with a string like numbers only. So if we want to, let's follow this exactly as it says there. So I want to check if either of these two are not a number. And if they're not a number, I want to reply with the string numbers only. How could we do that? How could we check if something is not a number? How can we check if something is not a number, Janesh? IsNan. So there is a function called isNan. This function tells you whether something is not a number or not. And this function was created because of this very confusing aspect. If I go to node and I try to do NaN, right, this is not a number, triple equal NaN, you would expect true, right? Because these two things are the same. But JavaScript gives you, no, they're not the same. Right? If you do one, and everything else makes sense, but NaN. So the isNaN function was created so that you can safely tell whether something is a number or not. So this is going to be true. Anything that is like an actual number is going to be false. Let's see, ABC, true. Try to convert this to a number, and it saw NaN. That is not a number. So we will need to use this function to be able to fully tell. So I saw some of you doing this, like the not a number triple equal not a number, and that was not giving you the desired result. Because when you compare those two, so let's do if num1, or if isNaN num1, or isNaN num2, then res.send only numbers, please. And I want a quick return. I don't want anything else to execute. Or we could say the opposite as well. I'm missing a parenthesis. So here I'm going to check, is num1 NaN after I try to convert it? Or is num2 NaN after I try to convert it? If one of those is NaN, then I'm going to return, I'm going to send back only numbers, please. So now our app should be more compliant with the specification, with the requirements. Let's quit this. Let's try with curl. Localhost 3000 /add/abc/3. Only numbers, please. Let's see that the other one still works. Still works. Other questions regarding this? Yes.
So return just stops right there. It won't do anything about it.
Yes, it will just quit. Another way in which we could have done this is you can say if num1 is not nan and is nan num2 is not nan, as long as neither of these are nan, then execute all this. Otherwise, just send only number split. So this is up to you for how you want to structure it. Yeah, returns quits the function like return always does, and then nothing of these will execute. If statements are known as control flow. It controls the flow of your program. It controls what gets executed and what doesn't. Cool, so it will be exactly the same for the others, and you will just change this operation here. Right. I'm not sure if this has a bug if we do this. Yep. This is good. I tried to send sort of like a multiplication as num1. But then you tried to parse this, and it gave it not a number, which is expected. So this is a string 3 star 4. Cool. Everyone clear on this one? If you're not, you should make your questions known. Yes. Good question. Yes, it is a falsy value. You can verify the implicit truthiness or falsiness of a value if you negate the value twice, like not, and false. Like not true, what is this going to be? True, because I first negate once, so not true is false. And then you negate that, false, not false is true. I remember this was actually something that my instructors taught me. And I remember we had to remember what were truth is and what were false is. And I just remember, that I could find out here that I didn't have to remember. I could just check it every time. And with time, you just start to remember them. Like an empty string is a falsy. A not so empty string is a truthy. Yes. Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah. So what Malik is suggesting is in here, since we now know that nan is a falsy, we could write this if statement, exact same one, like this. If not num1 or not num2, right? Because nan is a falsy value. So we're saying here, if we don't have num1, if num1 doesn't have a full value, actually I think there might be there's a bug with this, which is the 0. But let's see if it works first. Let's see. So here we're checking if one of those two. Oh, not this. Curl numbers split. So in this case, it works. Let's try ABC. This works. I think the bug will be on 0. Let's see. Yeah. Because 0 is a falsy value. So it will fall into here as not a number. So that will be, in that case, then the nan is a little bit better. Yeah. So let's go on with this one. Cool. Other questions, other points of view we should see. Brianna?
So I was able to print results on the calculated HTML side, except for when we are dividing by zero. So how, since that's null or undefined, how would that work? Because I tried to replace it with undefined or null with the value, but nothing still wouldn't work. It just is.
So let's look at that. So, you know, like if we want to create the division, it will be basically copy and paste this function, which is why we ask you to do like question 2 on the lab. I'm gonna change this to div, and I'm gonna change this to, instead of a plus, a division. Let's try this. Let's try curl localhost /div /4 divided by 2. We got a valid result. So let's try it like 12 divided by 6, 2 still. Okay, so it's apparently doing the correct division. And what the case Brianna is mentioning is, if we divide 12 by 0, right? I'm currently getting null. But division by 0 is not a mathematically defined result. So if you try to do like 12 in node, here I'm in node, it gives you infinity. Because, you know, division by 0 is one of those weird cases in math. I don't know if there is I don't know if the math community decided on what that means, but maybe, Michael is not here, maybe he will have more information. Undefined, right?
But to take that value of undefined or null, depending on where you're looking at it there, how I'm able to display on the HTML the different results, it's just blank. I'm not able to pull undefined or null to show. I
see. So you do receive, like, your result is null, and then you want to show this, right?
Yes.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So, yeah, the problem is that why that didn't work is because if you try to like do inner text of an element, set the inner text to null, is sort of like setting it the same as blank. So you'll need to do like, if the result is null, then display a string like undefined. Does that sound like it makes sense? Let's do like let's do it here. Let's do it quickly, like n. Save this as HTML. Math.html. HTML5.
I got around the problem by just make my numbers start at 1, so that way the input wouldn't allow you.
So some of you solved the problem by just not letting 0 to be the divisor. Okay, that's a fair solution, right? Like, but can you divide by negative numbers?
Yeah, just not 0.
Just not 0. Okay, so then your case wouldn't work. You just need to make sure that you don't allow 0. But if we were to do that here,
put it in that string. Say, put it.
Oh yeah. Like, and also in here, another solution we could have done, Brianna, is like maybe saying here, what is the result of a division call? Closure? Q in here. Right, so here we can say let quotient do this. Right, and then here we could just check if the quotient is null, then send like undefined, a string undefined here. That would be another way. Or yeah, we could do that in the front end too. Other questions or comments? Joanne? Like like the second point, right? Like basically only having one endpoint, this point, right? So yeah, so what we wanted for that is, one, for you to realize that you're like repeating yourself in here. Like basically, this function is exactly the same as the other one. There's just two things that change: the division and the endpoint here, right? So since you notice that they are repeating quite a bit, then you should start to think about, can I generalize this? Can I have not so much repetition? So for doing that, then we will need to do add.get, and then actually I'm going to need to comment the others in a few seconds. And here, in the URL, what we're going to specify, we'll do this rec res. What we'll need to specify, so you saw how num1 and num2 were, variables, like you could just plug in any value there and it will be captured in the request.params. We just need to do the exact same thing with the operation itself. So I'm going to say here something like operator, or OP, slash num1 slash colon num2. So now I generalize my endpoint so that the operator can be anything. And then I have two URL parameters, num1 and num2. So then, we're still going to need the parsing of the numbers. So let's do like num1 equal to, let's do it with number. Reg.params.num1, num2, we also will actually need the same if statement if is nan num1 or is nan num2, just so that we check to see if both are valid numbers or were properly converted or could be converted. We do res.send numbers only, please. I don't remember if that was the same message, but that doesn't really matter. And then return. Otherwise, instead of this return, we could also just do else, right? We could just write everything else in the else. Exact same thing. I don't want an else, so I'm just going to write it like that. And then now here, how would we handle the operator? Yes, Molly? Save it into a variable. Okay, let's do that here too then. Let operator equal reg.params that operator. We now know that everything that was specified with columns here will be available under the reg.params object. So I saved it to a variable. What else? Let's try this. We might try to do this. Let's do like result. And you might try to do this. Num1 operator num2. And then do that. Let's do something like data equal num1 num2 result and then res.json or .send data. This might have been your first attempt. You do num1 and then you put the operator in the middle, and then you do num2, right? And you might be attempting something like this, where num1 is like 3 times 4. Right? Would this work though? So there's a few things. What are some of those? Do you have a question? That's fine too.
No, I think you're about to answer.
So here we see that one VS Code is complaining, saying it is sort of like, basically VS Code here is saying that we're trying to assign these 3 values to a variable called result. Right? What we want to do is somehow interpret the operator. Right? Also, this operator is not actually going to be this. It's not going to be the multiplication or division. It's going to be a string div. We can see how. Right, so this is not really valid. Like 3 div 4 is not a valid JavaScript expression. What are some ideas for getting around this? Yes?
Would you turn it into like concatenate all 3 of those together into the string, and then parse int on or parse flow on the entirety of it, or is that operator going to throw it for a loop?
Yeah, so actually we cannot really do that. If we look here, if we go to Node, I'm in Node currently. I cannot do parse float 3 times 4. So this parse float doesn't do any math on its own. And if we do div, even less. Right? This. So what are some of the ways people get around this, Cameron?
So making an object,
Mm-hmm.
keys that signify which operating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good option. So what Cameron has is probably an object like this, const operations. So basically the problem that we want here is how can we map is the string div to the division operation. That is like the problem that we have. What we could do is we could have an operations object that keeps strings that are matching our operations. Now, what would the value of this property be? We cannot really do this. Or not division will be like slash. More will be add. And what was subtract? We see that JavaScript doesn't like this with those red squiggle lines, right? Because these are special symbols in JavaScript. The multiplication, the division, and the plus, they are special symbols, and they must be interpreted as special, right? What we could do instead of trying to do this that JavaScript is going to hate is what if we have a function that does the multiplication, another function that does the division, another function that does the addition, and another one that does the subtraction. Right? So instead of having these values here be this, let's have the values be functions. Do you guys know that you could have a function as a property of an object? This is how console log works. You know, these are functions, they are empty for now, but console log, there is a console object, right? And then you do log and you call the function. That is because there is a property on the console object called log that you can invoke, right? So we're just gonna do the same thing here. Now, what are the two arguments that this function should take? Two numbers. Let's do A and B. A and B. A and B. A and B. Now, the function stored under the division property, well, it should do what it says, which is divide. So let's do return A divided by B. These are just functions. It's just that they're written, they're so small that it's fair to write them on one line. In fact, in here, I could get rid of, let's look at it here. Thanks to ES6, we could just do A times B. This function could be as small as this. I'm going to be a little more explicit and for the others and do return A plus B, return A minus B. We're going to see that this should work. So this is why hash maps or this is called maps, because you're mapping sort of a string div to something else. Like here, we're mapping this the div string to a function that does division. That's why they're called maps. And we saw that operations like objects in JavaScript are just an abstraction on top of hash maps. So like literally here inside, JavaScript has to take this key, do some hashing, convert that to a number, store it in a bucket in an array. And in that array, in that bucket, it will have this function instead of a number or instead of a string. It's just that JavaScript does that, all of that for us. But questions regarding this operations object? Yes?
So you're 100% sure there's no way to make that divide and slash?
No, we can make it. It's a little bit, the division is, we're going to get there. Yeah. So let's see if this works. So I have a map. I'm mapping bare strings that represent an operation to a function that will actually do the operation. So in here, we could just say, so we tried to do this, and we saw that that didn't work. But now in here, the result can be operations. Right? Now, I want to access one of the operations in my operations object. What operation do I want to access? Yes?
Operator? The user submitted.
Correct. Whatever the user picked in here as operator. So I'm going to do operators, and I can't remember. I cannot do operations that operator because I need to, well, one, I don't have a property here called operator, right? I don't have a property or a key called operator. What I want is interpret the value of the operator variable, and we do that with square brackets. So here, this is known as, you should, if you're not sure as to how this is happening, look up something called computed properties. What this is doing is reading the value of operator, which is going to be one of div, mul, or add, or sub, and is going to look up that property into the operations object. Then you just call, since we know that that holds a function, we can just call that with num1 and num2. This is one of the most useful things, like mapping something from one representation to another. You're going to be seeing that you do this quite often. And this is sort of the whole point of hash tables, hash maps, objects, or dictionaries. So let's try this. I think this should work as of now. Let's see, exit. Let's try that with curl. Div 12, this 12 by 6. We got 2, nothing broke. Seems to work. Let's try more. 6 times 12, 72. That seems correct. Add 18. Subtract 6. Okay, so that seems to be working. Questions regarding this? Yes, yeah.
So I ended up for my functions, I made a math module and I came to do something sort of like this instead of hard coding it in just the API.
So you did a math module. That means.
But that means I have 4 different of the same like gets. I just tried to do it like this, but it doesn't.
Yeah, your module could literally be this. Like your module, like module.exports could be this object. And then you just say math at operator. I like to pronounce it. Some people do like operator operations sub operator. Some people read it like that. I like to read it operations at operator, or I also read array at index I. I think the more correct way is like array sub I. I think for me array at index I makes a little bit more sense. And here I'll read these operations at operator. Other questions or comments? Yes.
What does importing modules make like you want to try to keep your server as lean as possible? So is that kind of proper to put your functions outside and farm them in?
I think so. You should always prioritize code readability over just having a uploaded server. Yeah, always think about like, would making a module make my code more readable? If that is the case, then you should make that module. Yeah, I think this one is a small example. Yeah, this is a small example. If you made a module, that's fine. If you didn't, that's fine too. Like this is such a small example that I think both will be perfectly valid. So you see here that we were able to do all the operations in one endpoint. So let's take 2 minutes, talk to whoever is near you about how you handle this. How do you handle the point number 2 one route on your lab? Converse. Number, yeah. Yep. Number will still parse floats, yeah. Okay, so what do you guys see? How do your approaches differ, or maybe what is similar? Michael. Uh-huh. But wasn't the division problem because you were trying to do slash instead of like typing in div? Right. We're gonna get to how could we have done that? Any others? How do you approach? Yeah.
I have something like an operation, but it's just like separate functions like outside of the.
Outside, and then you have like if statements to check if the operation is equal to div, then call the div function.
No, I think I did.
Yeah, you could have had the functions outside too. The only downside that I see of that would be that I will need to write an if statement saying if operator triple equal quotes div, then call the div function. Else if operator equal mult or mul, just call the multiplication function. Having this object in this fashion allows me to get rid of this. What's something else that you noticed maybe that your partner did differently from you, or that they maybe made you realize something? I mean?
What will happen if you put instead of the operand something else?
You mean anything else that is not one of these?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at that. So I think a main discover bug in my code, which is what if I try to do, so this works, the subtraction. What if I try to do like operation ABC 12 and 6? Thumbs up if you say it's going to break and you're going to get an error. Thumbs down if you say you're going to get a result. It's not just what you expect. Okay, so thumbs up is like error, express is going to break. Thumbs down is you're going to get a response, maybe not what you expect. Cool, let's see. I think it's all about the same, and some people didn't vote. That's correct. Express broke. Saying operations at operator is not a function. Right? So let's think about why did it break? Like, does this error make sense? Malik? Correct. So basically, it's trying to do something like, it's trying to do something like, it's trying to do something like this. Operator like dot ABC, right? And there is no property in the operations object called ABC, right? What happens when you try to look up a property that doesn't hold a value on an object? You get undefined. Right? If I have an empty object, let LBG equal. This is an empty object, and if I try to look up any key there, I get undefined. Right? Nor key A nor key B exist in that object. And here is the same case. ABC is a property that doesn't exist in these operations objects. So basically, I'm just doing. Let's look at the same error. It's like calling ABC object.b, trying to call that as a function. It says that is not a function because it's undefined. Undefined is not a function. Therefore, it breaks saying operations at ABC, the key, is not a function. That is undefined, as Malik illustrated. Is that clear? Undefined on non-existing properties. You will get undefined on non-existent properties in objects. So let's get rid of this. Right, so the error still persists. If I try ABC, it's going to break horribly. How do I prevent this? Oh, so you say like if result is truthy, then everything went well. The problem is that it's breaking even before that. It's breaking like right in this line. So the result never gets calculated. So what about, can we check in the object and see if a function is truthy or falsy? Like if we have let node my object, and I'm going to create obj.sum, for instance, I'm going to put a function there. So obj now has a property sum and a function under that property, right? Then what if we do obj.sum is the sum property holding a truthy value or a falsy value. So then a truthy value. So in this fashion, we can check if a property exists. Let's try to search for a property that doesn't exist. Undefined, is undefined a truthy or a falsy? Falsy. There's another way in which you could do that, which is, I think, object that has own property, sum, true, ABC, false. This is doing the same thing, basically. It's a function called has own property that will allow you to check if an object has a given property. Oftentimes, I don't use this very much. I use this. I use object at sum. And if that's a truthy, then we have something that's a falsy. It doesn't have anything. It doesn't interest me. So here what we could do is, if operations have the operator function, then do this result. right? If the operations have that operator, then result equal to that. Return, or we could just do if that, then this, right? If we have an operator, a valid operator, then just do the math and reply with JSON. Else, res.send invalid operation or operator. Let's see this. Let's exit this. Let's go with curl. Let's try sum just to see that it still works. Oh, invalid operator. What's going on here? Oh, sum is not a property. It's add. Add works. Right, so sum is not a property on my operations object. Therefore, we fall under this else. Now, if I let's try null, this still works. Let's try ABC, invalid operator. Oh. Cool. So, questions about this? So, this is if we keep sort of the same API, right? We like this function, if I have a separate server that does this, that only has this one endpoint, that server will work exactly the same as the previous one, right? The first thing will be the operator. It's just that in here, we're sort of like hard-coding the operator here. But if we can see that we can abstract that, we see the repetition, then we can remove the repetition. So some of you, I saw that some of you were wanting to use the operator here, like something like instead of that, this, like multiply the symbol, the star symbol, to use it for multiplication, plus for addition. Then here, I could just change this instead of the div for the slash. This one is going to be the most tricky. Multiplication for the star, addition for sum, subtraction hyphen or minus. Let's see if this works. I just changed that and let's do sum. Nice, sum works. I could do plus 12 and 6. Some of you changed, like some of you did like num1, this will still work. Num1, and then just switch the operator. Right, so that it's a little bit more natural, like slash plus 6. This works. Multiplication, does it work? Works. Subtraction works. Now, division is a special case. And I saw some of you struggling with the division. And that's first struggle. Because, why do you think division is a special case? Can I just say here, division? Well, we get this error. But why do you think slash is a special case? Like, in JavaScript and somewhere else too. That's correct. So the slashes have special meaning in URLs. They denote sections of the URL. Yes, Hugo. So you had like you had what we had before, right? Like div, mul, add. Yeah, we could have still done that. Yeah. I just wanted to like make you aware that the slash is a special case. If we want to do this, the slash is a special case. So you cannot send a literal slash in this fashion that we're doing here. For special characters, so special characters in URLs are, we're going to see some of them today, or actually one. The colon is a special character. The slash is a special character. The question mark is a special character. Even the space. Space is a special character in URLs. Which one? Equals is a special character too, I think. Let's see. Like if we try to do equal here. Invalid operator. Yeah, but so these are symbols that are used for specific reasons in URLs. Slash are used for separating URL sections, right? So that's why we cannot use the slash here. So whenever you need to use one of these, like when you need the literal character, what you need to do is encode this character. Encoding means sort of transform this into something else that is not special, but that when the server sees it, will still be interpreted as a slash. And we're going to get to see more of this in the lecture today. But anyway, so let's look at this here. Let's do URL special characters. Let's see. So this is how these characters, these special characters, get encoded. So we see that the $sign seems to be also special. The ampersand seems to be also special. And let's see if they show how to encode them. Space 20. So you see how the $, if we want to send a $, I think the $, will be fine in certain circumstances. We saw that if the plus was fine under certain circumstances. If we want to send a slash, maybe this is another name, virgule, is 2F. So basically what we need to do is, instead of hard-coding the slash, we need to use this 2F. And we do that, I think it must be set here, %. No. Yeah, we do that if we, for using these values, we'll need to say %2F if I want to send a slash. So let's see if this works. %2F. Yep. So that made the division. Instead of the slash, you cannot really use the slash, literal slash, in your URL. You'll need to encode that so that the browser or whoever is making the network request doesn't see that as a separate section of the URL. Let's see if we could say the plus. You could even encode the plus. Let's see that this one. We saw that this one worked. We could just say plus, right? But if we change it to %2B, we still get the plus. So there is this notion that some characters have special meaning for certain agents. In this case, like curl mainly, and we need to encode them to be able to transfer them across the network. So to your question, Cameron, we cannot really do slash for the division. We'll need to do %2F. Mm-hmm.
So there's no way to type in the URL and have it converted in the code? No matter what you do, it's going to...
So what you can do is, when the user selects the division in the drop-down list, instead of adding that as a slash, you just add it as percent to f. And then that will work.
But in the URL,
No, if I type it directly in the URL, it's not going to work. Other questions or comments before we take a break and see today's content?
Yeah, so we should use those code points for code.
Yeah, there's not a lot of instances that you have to reach out for them actually, but sometimes you will need to. Yeah, so it's you don't need to remember this table, for instance. You just need to be aware that when you get like weird results on a URL, it might be because you're sending in a special character and it might be being interpreted specially. Other questions or comments? Okay, yep.
You would say computed operations?
Yeah,
I just want to make sure I have the right.
computed property. Read on this. We should be very familiar with computer properties. They make your code so much more flexible. Yep. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break and then be back. Okay, so let's actually see what we're going to be learning today. So we're going to be learning about passing data to the server, like sending data to your server. So I'm going to close this. Remember that I'm going to be sharing later today a repo that will have all like the code that I just made here. Now quit this. Let's do. I create another folder here. Nectar passing data express. I'm gonna create a folder called passing data in express. I'm gonna go to that folder, and here we're gonna be creating a server that we're gonna be sending data to. Also, let me check out like. Let me just find my notes. Cool. Oh, don't look at what the exit ticket asks. Actually, you can look at it. Yeah, this is what the exit ticket is going to ask you. So let's take this as a moment to think about this, and then as we go through the content. Cool. Okay, so how do we send data to the server? Have we sent data to the server yet? Have we given the server any data to work with? What are some of those, Giselle? Just a little bit louder. Like forms? Okay. Yeah. So forms. What are other ways in which we have given data to a server so far? Post. We're going to see that these two are actually very closely related. And in what we have done so far with servers, have we given the server any data that it didn't have initially? I think we have. Michael? The URL. And you see the things that we had before. The URL is a piece of data that we're giving the server. And the URL, more specifically, we're giving some URL parameters. URL parameters. That is what we saw here. We were in our server. We have configured the endpoint to be after the first slash to have a URL parameter that will capture the 12, another URL parameter that will capture the operator, and one more URL parameter that will capture the second number, right? So these are correct ways of giving data to the server, right? We're communicating with the server. The first way that we're going to see is something called URL parameters, which is actually not entirely foreign to us by now. And then, right, so we're going to learn like a few different ways of giving data to the server. You know, and only getting data like with GET requests or like in our math API is not fun, right? Like you want to create data, save it like forever or at least for a prolonged amount of time. And why do we want to pass data to the server? I guess, like, give me some examples of instances where you want to pass data to the server. Like real-world examples. Joanne? Like when you're registering a user, right? Like you want that user to have an account with your website, for instance. Right? You want to save, you know, the username and the password, maybe their email, maybe their profile photo, all that, right? So you want to send that information to the server for the server to store, and we're gonna see that today. Cool. So the first thing that we're gonna do, so there's 3 ways of passing data to the server. Some are better suited for some for different purposes. So we're gonna learn about URL parameters, URL query strings, also these are also known as query parameters. Query strings or query parameters. And lastly, so request body. We're going to be sending how a post can have a body in which we send data. So let's dive into some of this. So the URL parameters are variable sections in the URL. In the URL path, like /users, /user ID, right? For instance, or another example was what we had with the math API, /add, /whatever number, right? That part is, whatever number part is a variable, right? It can change. Now, query string are commonly used for filtering or sorting information. Or specifying details, and this, we're going to get to see this in more detail. They come in key value pairs. They come in key value pairs, and they come after a question mark in the URL. But we talked about how a question mark is a special character in URLs. The question mark specifies when a query string starts. And the request body, for safer and for larger amounts of data. So we're going to get to see this in more detail. So let's go on to URL parameters. So URL parameters allow your endpoints to be dynamic. We saw that in the math API, right? We saw how we could have one endpoint that does all the operations, and we reduce the code required for that considerably, right? There are variable sections in the URL, and let's look at one example. So let's look at Canvas students URL. So I'm gonna go to Canvas. What do we see? What do we see stay the same, and what do we see change? So in here, I go to Canvas right here. I think you could do this too. If you go to your course, 6 to FSW, you see here this tab. Like, does everyone see like the people link in their Canvas? So one note here also. Note the URL at which we are. We are in canvas.instructure.com/courses/ a number. So I think this, you cannot see this, but because you only have one course, but you see that I'm part of multiple courses. Let's see if this changes as I click on a different course. You guys see change from the previous number? I'm going to change it again. Now this number here is changing, right? So we can think of if Canvas, I don't know what server they're using, but if Canvas is using Express, their URL will be something like, I'm just going to focus on the last part of the URL, something like courses, / then here they'll specify a URL parameter in their backend saying the thing that comes after courses, let's call that like course ID. Right? And then that's how they're able to have just /courses, and because this part here is variable, it changes as we go. If we go back to 6.2, we see that 6.2 is a course. Probably this is the idea. I'm not sure. I'm not completely sure, but this sort of hints that this could be the ID. And 6.2's ID is 1,605,784. Reading numbers in English was one of the toughest parts for me. So this is our course ID. This is the 6.2 ID, right? Now let's look at, so you know that probably, and they might not be using Express, but they're expressing this idea that after courses, you're going to have something that changes, right? Now let's look a little bit deeper as we go. Let's go to people. You see, this stayed. Now we went to the users of this course, right? Now in users, let's see. So here are all of you. Let's check Chuck's ID. I'm gonna click on Chuck here and know the URL. Oh, actually, this is I have to go to this side and click on his name. Yeah. Now Chuck is user ID in Canvas 2 million. No, this is 24 million. 24,152,377. So this is Chuck's ID. For Canvas, Chuck is this number. Now go and find your number. Were you able to find yourself? So tell me who wants to give me their number. I type it here. Joy?
Right after Chuck.
So you're like 78? Joy is 78. Right? So you see this part. So in this URL, we can see two chunks changing. We see this chunk that comes after courses, and I believe, I'm not sure because I don't work at Canvas, but I believe that signifies the course ID. It's very likely that that's the course ID. This other part doesn't change, but after the users, we have something else that we saw changing. Like if I go to somebody else, let's do 79. Let's see who's 79. Kathy, 79. This area here, this section of the URL is variable. Imagine if they had to create a single endpoint, like one route in their server for every single one of you. Imagine how many lines. So since this is probably how many people they had. They had 24 million registered students in this platform. This is not us. This is not just Pursuit. I believe Pursuit hasn't had that many, I think. So imagine if for every single one of those students or people registered, they had to change their server, add one more route, like literally going app.get /courses / whatever course ID / your unique ID. Wouldn't that be a pain in the ass? Right, so then instead what they have is a server that can interpret these variable sections that we call URL parameters, and then based on those, then do corresponding work. So that they basically only had to code two routes to handle that. One for courses / course ID, and another one for courses that will be sort of a sub-route of this course ID / users / user ID. So URL parameters are sections of the URL that are variable, that change. Right? Questions regarding this? We already saw how we handle this on Express, but we're going to see more. Let me go here. Oh, my computer is about to die. Cool, so let's look back here. Okay, so if Instagram server were built with Express, what would their routes look like? Go to Instagram and see what are the parts of the URL that changes. Do that do that alone and then share with whoever is next to you. If Instagram servers were built using Express.js, what would their routes look like? So we're looking at URL parameters. So what did you find? What did you find in the Instagram's URL? Peter?
It's just slash like your username. Or just Instagram.com/your username.
So it'll be like, let's do it. So this will be like canvas instructor .com. This is known as the domain name, right? It will be the same one for that. For Instagram, it will be https://Instagram / So what part is variable here? What would we call that if we were building like a server for Instagram? What would we call this part? Username is a good name, so let's do a URL parameter. Username. Does anybody else see maybe a different URL parameter or a different variable changing in the URL? Yes?
When we click on someone's story, it said Instagram/stories and then /AJ.
That was good. So you basically, Brianni found that for looking at stories in Instagram, you have /stories. Right? This is, stories is right after the Instagram.com, and then /username. Cool. Yeah. So we see that this is how they decided to build their routes. It's interesting, that question you may ask, why wouldn't they do like username /stories instead of this? And that is a questions whose answer only the engineers at Instagram have. They might have had a good reason why they didn't do it that way. Let's see, I think, did anybody see, I think I saw something else change, but I can't remember. Anything else that was sort of variable on Instagram? I think those are two good examples. So, if Instagram server was built in Express, we know for sure that these two will probably be routes. Right? What are some what didn't change? Did you guys see anything that didn't change in the URL? Like, I think this doesn't change, right? That doesn't change. Or maybe there are so basically most of these apps, servers, and the ones that we're going to be building, we have a handful of main principal routes. So I'm sure that for Instagram is probably, this is one of the main ones for getting user profiles. This is another one of the main ones. I think there's Explore is another one, /Explore. And there might be some others that are main URLs, but they're a handful. They're not that many. Cool. So questions regarding URL parameters, at least at this level, as to seeing them in the wild. Well, that's close. So those variable sections in the URL is what we call URL parameters. Let's see what else. So this. Yeah. Okay. So how do we handle this in Express? Well, we already actually saw it. Let's do a demo here with server with a route breed. So let's do I'm gonna create a folder or a file here. Let me exit this. I'm currently in this folder that is empty, where I'm gonna experiment. I'm gonna create a file called let's do index dot or server.js. I have an empty file. In here, I want to use Express. So what do I need to do to be able to use Express? The what? Oh, each time, yes. Each time you want to create a server, you need to do a few steps before you can actually start coding that server. Oh, well, once you're building servers, you should always make sure that you have a package JSON that keeps track of the dependencies of your server. If you install it globally, when I clone, like if you have been installing your Express globally, your applications are going to work. The problem is they're only going to work for you. Because if I go to your GitHub and download your server, and your server doesn't have a package JSON, then I don't know what your server depends on. Each time you create a server, yes, you need to do npm init default with y or -yes. And then npm, so this gave me a package JSON, we can see it here. Then npm install Express. npm install Express. That is downloading Express. Now I should have a node modules folder with Express inside and all the dependencies of Express. Peter?
So we don't have to do the Express dash save anymore?
No, the dash.save is not necessary anymore. So I just install Express. Now, if I have this in a repo, you can clone it, you can download my code, and as you see that the package JSON has a dependencies, let's do cat package JSON. As you see that the package JSON has a dependency property, Express is listed there, then you will know that my server depends on Express. There's other ways to create servers, but this is the way that we're learning, Express. Okay, so I did that, and then I can const Express, Express equal require const app or server, whatever you want to call it, Express, invoke Express. And then let's have a route called app.get /dogs and just do dog. And now I want to specify a URL parameter, a section in the URL that is going to be variable, but that I still want to capture in here. So I'm going to do /breed rec. The second argument, remember that it's a callback, rec res and arrow function. Let's have our server listen. Hard code in here for 3000. You could have it in a variable, that's fine. Since these are so small servers, this is fine. Console log, or just like running at http://localhost let's close the console log, and we have this. We have a very simple So here I'm gonna do res.send / dog route hit. Very simple server. Let me open another tab in here. Yeah, it gives you some time to finish typing this. So this route is no different from the one on the math API in the sense of, using URL parameters. So run your server. Now do that with nodemon. My server is running. Add this address. Yes. We don't have to install nodemon each time. Yes. We don't have to install nodemon each time because nodemon is a development tool. Our project works without nodemon, right? But in our project, this app is not going to work without Express. Which one? Course? Oh, course we will need to install every time. Yeah, nodemon, we don't need to install it every time because this is a development tool. This is for enhancing our developer experience. Developers do this quite often, enhancing their development experience. Yes?
We had defined the ports earlier.
Yes.
Is that something we should normally do, or is that just...
It is fine to do it. It's fine to define the port. Here, I'm just like hard coding it straight here. Because this is such a small server. But if in a bigger server, it will be better to have it in a variable. Just because other reasons that we're going to find it later. So I have my server running. I'm going to hit that server with curl. HTTP localhost /dog / husky. I don't know how to spell husky. Like this? Like HUSKI. Let's try this. Dog husky. So I'm going to hit enter. And I got back /dog route hit. Right, so that's good. We're hitting our route. Was everyone able to see this? Okay. So then I can say /bulldog, dog/bulldog, and I still hit the same route, right? Or let's do, what's another dog breed? Chihuahua. I don't know how to spell Chihuahua, that's too hard. Corgi, is it like this? This is the example that we have in the lesson. Yeah, this is like one of famous dog in the internet. These dogs. There's a meme with it, right? I think I've seen it. Yeah. So let's do this one. Dog/corgi. We see that our route was hit, right? So this is how, there's basically no difference between like that and Instagram username, right? Now let's see how we can, where this is, which we have actually already seen. So actually, let's try another route, like cats. Do we have a route called cats? Therefore, we cannot get /cats. So this is curl doing nothing for you, just giving you the data that you requested. In this case, the server replied with this HTML. It's saying it cannot get that. So let's go back to dog/corgi. Now let's see where this information was saved. So actually this should be, we should know by now. Let's see. Alessandra, how could we get corgi from the URL here? So that maybe we can say dog route hit with corgi. How could we access? So I have it here. Well, what if we want to say like dog route hit, and if I hit it with corgi, then it was going to say that. If I hit it with husky, it's going to say that. So we could do request.params.breed. Yes, that's correct. Not corgi. Breed. So let's see this. Oh, actually, this will need to be not with comma, but with string concatenation. Do with, or let's do with params. Dog route hit with param, rec.params, breed. So let's see this. Corgi. And then we see dog route hit with param, corgi. Or with a little bit more complete will be dog route hit with breed param equal to corgi, or whatever they type. So if we do this again, we see dog route hit with breed param equal to corgi. Let's do husky, bulldog. So the rec.params property of the request object. You see, this is why like the importance of being really clear on like objects, accessing properties in objects, and setting properties. Yes.
Is that only on the terminal?
Yes, this is only on the terminal.
What is it?
This is my terminal. What you might be seeing is this. If I do curl https ://localhost 3000 /dog/corgi localhost, misspell. You might be seeing this. So you see that the percent symbol in the end is because my terminal, it says that this is not adding a new line at the end. So we can see that I will type in here. That's what the percent sign means, that is not adding a new line. And some of you, I think, Hubal, you were getting this behavior later on when you were trying to curl, which is the prompt was like next to whatever response you got. But you don't really have to worry about that. So that, like, this percent sign is telling me, oh, I didn't see a new line. I'm gonna put your prompt on the next line. So we see bulldog, and we got this with breed param equal bulldog. So questions about like URL parameters, how to handle them in Express. We could also say like dog route hit with, let's do this, with params, just rec.params to see what rec.params looks like. This might be tricky because we're concatenating basically this string with what is going to be an object. Let's see if this works. I'm going to try this in the browser. Localhost 3000 dog/. Okay, in here we're going to get object. This is because we see object because JavaScript is trying to concatenate a string with an object. So let's do here console log reg.params. Let's look at what the reg.params is. So let me exit this, lower this a little bit. Oh, I forgot how to make it. So let's see, I'm gonna hit this endpoint again, and we have here, this is reg.params. This is reg.params. So reg.params is this object that gets created. Express creates this for us, which is really nice. If we had to create this, it would be a little bit harder. Basically, Express creates an object called reg.params that will hold all our URL parameters. So if I had more here, I don't know, let's do like, if we are building an app for, let's say, an animal shelter, right? That was actually a capstone project from last year. You might have dog/breed/ let's say age, right? So now I have two URL parameters, have one called breed and one called age. Now let's look at what reg.params is going to be next time. Hit this. I cannot get that because I didn't specify the second parameter, / let's say age 4 years. Now we have that reg.params is this object with our two parameters, breed and age. Questions, comments? Are you able to see the same on your computer? So this is how we can have route parameters, variable parts on our URL that allow our endpoints to be more flexible. Let's see. Cool, so let's do this, Pt1. In pairs, go to the Pokemon API and find what you believe are route or URL parameters and discuss with your partner. Let me put this in here. So whoever you're sitting next to, go to the Pokemon API and see what you believe are route or URL parameters. Discuss why you think something may or may not be a URL parameter. Then let's share with what you find. Bless you. Okay, so what are some of the parameters that we found? And at what endpoints? URL params. What are some URL params that you found on the API documentation?
Pokemon slash name.
So it will be like,
Pokemon.
this is like, so the endpoint is just like Pokemon,
Yeah. And then we have to type in Pokemon's name.
and then right after that you have like Pokemon name, right? Name. Also, a lot of these documentations they'll use curly brackets or angle brackets to sort of like signal to you. So you will see angle brackets or curly brackets to signal to you that something is variable, that something is you're supposed to replace it with something else, right? I cannot do just Pokemon slash literally Pokemon name. I need to do Pokemon slash Bulbasaur or any actual Pokemon. So this is one, and was found that this is a URL parameter used at this endpoint. What are some others? Oh, that's cool. So in here, basically for this endpoint, you could also use a Pokemon ID. So that's cool. This is a little bit more dynamic. Not only it allows for a name, but it also allows a Pokemon ID. Cool. Others. Maybe other endpoints.
Type isn't
Which one? Type?
slash type, yeah. And it takes a type ID.
It takes in type ID. Or yeah. saw somebody else around here. Michael. Berries. Berry or berries?
Berries, and then ramen, berries.
Berries?
So yeah, berry with white and the ramen is the yeah, it's like the idea.
Like berry ID?
Yeah.
So this is something that the Pokemon API does, and that you will do as well as you create APIs. You will document your APIs, and you will say, to this endpoint, you can use these URL parameters to get different information. Yes.
Yeah, like when you say it's like dynamic, you can use either the name or the ID to get the same thing.
Yes. In this case. So URL parameters allow for that dynamic structure. So these are some of the URL parameters that you found, and you will also. This is and this will be oftentimes just followed here by the slash Pokemon name, slash type ID, berry slash berry ID, right? What's something you notice here? And that we also saw on Canvas. I mean,
Endpoints are fixed and the apps that are
the endpoints, these are fixed. These are like main endpoints, principal routes, and these are variables. Something else is IDs seem to be something that is used often, very often actually, for specifying an individual resource, right? So with IDs, we can identify one specific Pokemon. We can identify one specific student. Yes.
Do you have to like make the ID correspond with the order you put it in?
We're gonna get to see that once we get into databases. You can have a like auto increase. Since if we were building Canvas, the first student to join will probably be ID 1, the second ID 2, stuff like that. Or we could also do our own. Cool. So those are URL parameters. Let's go to URL query strings. So URL query strings are commonly used for filtering or sorting the data. They are key value pairs that come in the URL after the question mark and are always the end of the endpoint. So they are always the end of the endpoint. So let me show you here with the cat API. The cat API has images search, right? We haven't used this API, but it's similar to the dog API, but you will need to authenticate. The dog API is like free for use and public, and you don't need to authenticate, but this you do need to authenticate. We just haven't seen that yet. But we can see that this is the URL. This is a URL. And then let's look at here. So here in the documentation it says there are 8 query parameters, and this is like the documentation specify what those are: size, MIME types, order, limit, page, category ID, formats, and breed ID. So let's see if we can make one. So this is like a test. So I'm gonna click on send, and this is a really good experience where APIs will offer in the documentation the possibility for you to test it right there, which is super nice. Not having to copy this to Postman and so on. So in this case, we got this. We got probably this is the image of a cat. If we open this. copy that, a new tab, paste it. We got a cat. So note here, so this we made this request through this endpoint, right? And let's look at query parameters. So in here, this endpoint doesn't seem to have, doesn't seem to have URL parameters, but it will have query parameters. So we saw that in the documentation here, it says that there are these query parameters. And then we're gonna see how we specify this. So there are all these that we could use. I'm gonna say size. So size, let's actually look at the documentation a little bit more. So we can see here, responses, no, query parameters. So size can be one of full MED, small thumb. Limit seems to be a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 100. Let's try limit. So for specifying a query parameter, as opposed to, oh, I cannot change it here. Let's see, let's go query. I'm gonna set here limit to maybe 3. And I'm going to make this request. I'm gonna hit send. And I think we should have gotten here something else. So we now have, this was the response now, and we have 3 cats, or 3 cats we should have. This is 1, this is 2, and what's this? This is the 3rd one, and then there's something else called breeds which we can ignore for now. But we got 3 cats, and that was because we specified in the URL this limit. We cannot see here, so let's see, original request here. This is what the request looks like inside, like the raw request. And you can see here that the URL has all this, and the last part is followed by this question mark, is a key value pair where the key is limit and the value is 3. And we are specifying this is a query string, or also known as a query parameter. They come after the question mark, and they're used for filtering the result or sorting it. So here I want to request from this endpoint, I want to request 3 cats. Seems that the default is 1. Can I remove this? Seems that the default is 1. And let's see if I can do this with a Postman. The thing is, I don't want to have to register to use this. I'm gonna see if this is actually an API key that I can use for demo. So for like using this API, you need a key that you will acquire if you want to use it. So I'm gonna do get request to this. No, I'm gonna get a get request to this URL. Paste that in here. Authorization API key. I'll paste this in here. The key is this. I'm gonna send. See? Yes. Okay. So that's a valid API key. That's good. We can demo it. But the point of this is not the API key. The point is the query parameters here. How can I close this? So here, everything after the question mark are known as query parameters. They're key value pairs. The value is limit. We use equal to sort of like assign the value 3 to this query parameter. We can also see that this is Postman being nice. Postman will change this value here if I change it in the URL. Let's do 30. See, this changes here. So here, if I send this, I'm gonna get 30 cats. I don't want to count them, but they seem to be 30. So these are query parameters. They are different from URL parameters in the fact that the differences are the query parameters come after a question mark and they're key value pairs. URL parameters are not key value pairs, and they don't come after a question mark. So let's look at what other query parameters we have here. Let's go back. Seems that we can do like format breed ID, so maybe we can specify like the breed that we want, what size the image we want. Let's do breed, but we'll need to know one of the breed ID. So I'm going to change this limit to do breed, as the documentation says, breed underscore ID. Note here how Postman populates these fields for me, and then I'm going to pick a breed ID from here. These are cats. Breed. So it seems that no, this is one cat, two breeds. Let's look at what this is. ID Bali. Okay. So maybe this is one breed. Balinese cat. So I'm gonna do breed ID instead of 30, Bali. Let's try to send this. And we get a Balinese cat. Let's look at it. This is the cat. This is the Balinese breed. So note here how I have this query parameter, this query string in the URL. So this is another way in which you can send data to the server. We're going to learn how to handle this in our Express servers, which is going to be slightly different from the URL parameters. And also, you can combine, if you want to pass in more than one query parameter, you just need to add them with ampersand, then the other query parameter. So I want to say, here I got one cat. Maybe I want to get 3 cats that are Balinese. So let's do limit equal 3. Let's send that. And we should have gotten 3 cats. Let's see if we can collapse this thing. Collapse this. Collapse this. Yeah, we got 3 cats. One object here. Another object here. Let's see the 3 cats we got. Open this one. Open this one. And let's open the last one. So these are the 3 Balinese cats we got. So note here how we specify 2 query parameters. They come after the question mark, key value pairs, and they are the end. Like you cannot do like another thing here. This is probably gonna break. Let's do like I don't know, dogs. We can actually see that the API will just ignore, or at least this API will just ignore anything you put after. Doesn't break. Oh, and it doesn't take. Actually, it does sort of break. You know, we're not getting a Balinese cat. Oh, we are getting a Balinese cat. But we're not, the limit is not being respected. This second parameter, this second query parameter or query string is not being respected of giving me 3 cats. So questions regarding query parameters? Yes, Ganesh? Always at the end, yes. Always at the end of the URL or at the end of the endpoint. Never in the middle or the beginning. Other questions, comments, concerns? Yes. Is there a limit? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think there is a limit. Let's see. Query parameters limit or max number. I don't think this is a good search. Yeah, let's see. What is the maximum possible length of a query string? This is good. The standard. So this document is this very plain document states the standard of HTTP. Like, this is like how HTTP works, and all these people were working on how HTTP works. See that since that it's June 1999. I don't know if this is. Oh yeah, this is not the latest version. I think this is the latest version. This is the latest version. The latest version was revised in June 2014. And these are like the rules, the playbook for HTTP basically. Like they specify everything here. And this document says, as exposed here, states there is no limit to the length of a query string. So there is no limit. You can go crazy if you want. You can, yeah, like your URL can be really long because, you know, since this is going to be traveling, you know, this travels in the URL. So URL will be really long. Yeah. Yes, Suzanne.
Does the order of each parameter matter?
That's a great question. Let's see. So we got 3 Balinese cats here. Let's flip the order. I'm gonna do limit first. Breed ID. I forgot the breed ID. Do you guys remember? Bali. Let's see how many we got. We still got 3. Are these still Balinese? Yes. So the order doesn't matter in query parameters, as opposed to URL parameters. In URL parameters, the order matters very much. Which one you put first? Yes.
You know, is it like similar to like when you're like on a website and you want to like filter results? Does it get added as a mention like each like box you check?
Yeah, actually, that's an exercise that I want us to do. We saw that. How do we handle that in Express? Before we do how to handle that in Express, let's do activity P2. Go to Craigslist and go to the section for sale. Go to Craigslist and go to the section for sale. Right? And then there, hopefully we don't have surprises. Try to see if you can find query strings or query parameters. Can you make query strings appear in the URL by maybe clicking buttons or checking checkboxes? Yeah. Find query strings or params and their meaning used in Craigslist for sale section. Try a few filters on the left. So if you go to see how those filters affect your URL. And then, yeah, talk about that with whoever is sitting next to you. See what query parameters your neighbor found. See what your neighbor found.
Your body will take this stuff.
So what query parameters do you find? The picture? So which one, how do I make that one appear? Has image. Check that off. Something happened with the URL. Now we have this query parameter called, we know that it's a query parameter. Why? The question mark and the key value pair, right? And we have Pt1. Yes, do this.
What was the vocabulary word for the call before the question mark?
This part?
Or is that
the
the query parameter?
No, this will be the endpoint. This section here will be the
Oh,
endpoint.
that's actually part of the endpoint.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then this is the query parameter to this endpoint.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So haspic, as we check this box, now we see this haspic query parameter appear, and it has the value 1. What if we change this to 0? Did you guys try that? It seems that it doesn't do anything. So basically, 0 just, maybe it's the same as just not including. Yeah. But this 1 is very, like in computer science and what we do, 1 is oftentimes, most of the times, is used for saying yes or true, 0 for false or no. Right? So we see that if we have has pick 0, it just gets ignored. It's just the same as nothing. Because, well, I don't know if you want to search for stuff that doesn't have images. Maybe I don't know why Craigslist didn't think of that. But has pick 1 ensures that all of them, all the posts have actually images. What are some others? Somebody else? Stephanie, any parameter that you found? When I click on 1, what do you mean? Okay. Yeah, it gives you more details. But in here, we don't have any query parameters in the URL. We don't have any query parameters because we don't have like question marks or anything. Were you able to like maybe selecting one of these two or playing with these inputs here, able to put any other query parameter in the URL? Maybe somebody else can help. Yes, Brianna. Min price? Let's try that one. Is it min underscore price, right? Let's try 500. The minimum price 500. Note here that we could specify the price here. Let's see if this works. Min price 500. So you saw I didn't specify it here. I specified it in the URL, min price 500. And then he filled out here. Now all this results that I'm seeing is, whose price is greater than 500. This is a car for 530. So let's specify 1. Let's make sure that this have an image. So note what happens once I click on the second parameter. Has image. Note the URL. Now the URL changed to has image and the ampersand min price 500. So now I'm getting results who have an image and minimum price is $500. Yes. How it added it before? I'm not sure how. Well, this is up to you. So we saw that as per Suzette's question, the order doesn't matter, right? I could do this in this order, X and this, and it should still work. It should still give me the same results. Maybe some of them the order changed, but the point is that we still has images checked, and the price is still 500. Right? This will be, like they put it before or after. It doesn't really matter, but it will be, the developers that created this website decided to do it that way. I'm not sure why. Let's see, like what is posted today. So these were posted today. Now we have has pick 1 posted today equal to 1, and min price 500. Yeah, it seems that as you check stuff here, it just gets put before. But that is just them. Chevy. Let's try Chevy here. We now see that has pick is 1, posted today is 1, min price, and auto make model Chevy. Now I'm only looking at those. So query parameters are used mostly for filtering the result or sorting it. Yes.
So I was looking at cameras, and I did Canon as a make and model. And
Here?
Exactly. or no, just one.
This one? Oh, just one in?
There we go. But then well, maybe it's just because it's under specifically photo video. Then you could further specify specific models under the Canon brand.
I see. So,
And then when I did, I looked at Canon 60D, it's Canon plus 60D in the URL.
I see. Yeah, then basically, you decide how you handle these query parameters. In that case, the developers, the creators of Craigslist in their backend decided to, instead of having an extra query parameter, they will decide they will just add them with a plus, you said, and then that's also fine. So here we have this URL with how many? 1, 2, 3, 4 query parameters. Cool. Now let's see. Let's go for lunch, and then after that, let's see how we handle this in Express. Then how we can send data with a post request and work on the lab. That should be quick.
On the image itself is not the actual parameter?
No.
Key in specifics.
So if I go here, this is this for sale section. When I click on one, that just takes me to this items page, which is gonna be this URL, right?
Yeah.
But in this URL, what we really wanted to demonstrate was how query parameters appear here. And you just need to remember that query parameters come after a question mark,
Okay.
and they're key value
So
pairs.
that doesn't have a question mark.
That's correct. So this URL here doesn't have any query parameters. What we wanted to see was...
Wait, it has to come after one of the special keys that you mentioned, right?
what do you mean special keys?
Earlier you mentioned that there were 5 special keys.
Oh, 5 special characters, yeah.
Characters.
Those are well, it has to come after the question mark. That's the special character for query strings. So here, if
I think I typed it here. I don't see it now.
yeah, maybe here.
Yeah. I need to make space for it. Yeah, but I don't see it actually.
Oh, you have a question there, why use slash when you want to pass?
Why?
Uh-huh.
When that's what you were saying earlier. Why do we want to pass parameters or?
So those parameters.
These are, no, wait, I wrote it somewhere. Special characters. No, I don't see it. That's what I wrote it.
So just remember that query parameters come at the end here, and they start with a question mark. So for instance, if I check pass image, look what's going to happen with the URL.
Now it has a parameter because it comes after the question mark.
Yes, and these are known as query parameters or query strings.
And this would be what exactly it has to is just tell you that it is a parameter for picture.
Yes, this is a parameter that indicates whether the results all have pictures.
Okay.
So this one means all of them will have pictures. In here, I'm not gonna get a result that doesn't have a picture.
Okay.
All of them have pictures. So query parameters are used for sorting the results or also filtering. So what we're doing here is we're filtering the results, and we only want to show the ones that have a picture.
Okay.
Yeah. And then another way we can specify the minimum price to be $500. I hit enter. Now I have 2 query parameters. Now I'm sort of filtering. I'm filtering for the results, all these results have to have a picture,
Okay.
and they must be more expensive, or the minimum price has to be at least 500. So in these results that I got here, all of them have photos, and none of them is under $500. So for instance, here I'm not gonna get a result for $300
Has to equal 5 or higher.
higher, because that's, this is the query parameter that we specified by having, this price set here. Yeah. So query parameters are key value pairs, like the key here.
Like key values here.
Yes, like objects. This is the key and this is the value. And they come at the end of the URL.
Wait, what's the fact that you know that this is a price and that this is the image, it's like the separation, right? The key and then the value.
The separation will be made by the
Equal sign?
the equal sign. Here I'm just like, this ampersand is separating the two query strings. One it has pick, one, yeah, you're welcome.
Not necessarily, so it's not really necessarily the equal sign that is separating them, it's the and. The equal sign is specifying like, this is the minimum that you will get.
No, the equal sign is separating the key from the value.
Okay.
So the so you have basically like param equal value or key. You will call this. So this is one query string.
Okay.
So now you separate query strings from one another by the ampersand. So if I have something like so like color equal red, and so this is like one query parameter. Also, this will need to have a question mark here, and the rest of the URL here, like .com / something, anything here. But the URL, we know that these are query parameters because they come after the question mark. Query parameters are separated from one another by the ampersand. So I could say, let's say this is a website for dresses, and I want to get all the dresses that are red. And let's say I also want to have, the type of dress. I'm interested in a.
Oh no, it's in your elbow.
Why can you never kill that mosquito?
I think he did.
Yeah. So let's say this is a website for dresses. Let's do like dresses.com.
Okay.
The question mark specifies the query parameters. Now, if we could imagine that if this website existed and this was a query parameter on this website, we will get all the dresses that are red. Right? So, if we don't specify this, let's imagine we were going to get all kinds of dresses from all colors. But now, if I specify I am only interested in the red dresses, I could explicitly say that by adding this query parameter or this query string, color red. So that's going to filter the results to only be dresses that are red.
Okay, and then the end would like add on other specifications.
Yes, that's correct. Other query strings. So I could say another one could be like, let's say type equal wedding. I think that's well spelled.
Okay.
So this will get me. Now I'm filtering even more. I'm filtering. Actually, I don't know if this. There must be wedding dresses that are red. Most of them are white, but they. But this will give me, not only color, not only red dresses, but also now it's like even less results because from all the red dresses, maybe 30 are wedding dresses or whatever number. So that's why we use query strings. Like they allow us to filter the results.
Okay.
And you just need to learn to identify them because they come after a question mark. And their key value pairs. So this is key or the param, and this is the value.
And this will be another key and this another value.
Correct.
Okay.
And this as a whole, like this as a whole, is known as a query string or a query parameter.
Okay. But what you did with the terminal, that's not something that we are able to do. You have two terminals open, and then you're using one to, and when you use the other one, it reflects on the other. Like, what are you doing to do that?
No, that's just like, that is just the same as having this. Just like the same as opening another one.
They didn't work for me though.
Oh, you can open another one with Command N. Command N keeps opening more.
Oh, so it's the same one, but
It's the same one. I just opened another window.
because I have two terminal, and then the second one doesn't read it because I didn't download the npm on it. It only reads the first one. So
That will depend. So that's like, that will be another topic, like aside from this. That actually doesn't have anything to do
no,
with
but I
this.
was just trying to imitate what you were doing. So I realized it wasn't working. I was wondering why. Now that you mentioned that, it makes sense because we had to download the npm server to
But
be able to do that.
It should work as long as you are in the same location in both terminals. So for instance here, this is my location. Like,
No, but I think I don't know. If,
let me stop this.
I know you said it shouldn't make a difference, but I think